Hi there, my name's Daniel Gillespie. I'm from the band Skerryvore. We've been going, this would have been our 15th year as a band. Sadly not on the road for the 15th year, but it would have been our 15th year. I'm also the co-founder of Tiree Music Festival, which has been going for 10 years out on the island of Tiree, the most westerly of the Hebrides in Scotland. And across all the work with the band and the festival, we've been constantly trying to evolve and change our models to the digital world and how we can maximise our reach of our music and the festival and everyone else as well. So look forward to chatting a wee bit more about that today. Okay, the first topic we're going to try and cover is it's called Demystifying Digital, which is a very apt title for trying to work out this maze, this sort of digital maze that's always in front of us. And it's something with the band in particular. We've, been 15 years together at the start, it was very much more about what you did in a physical sense. Your music and your shows being there predominantly, but you were collecting mailing lists by people signing at the merch stall and all these sort of early ways of trying to build a database. And then that's obviously through time, I think that the most prominent thing that kicked in at first was Facebook, and it was a very focused on likes and reach and growing your audience online, but there's obviously been numerous platforms launched since then that we've had to very quickly adapt to. And at the moment our Facebook's our biggest platform in terms of following, but Instagram, Twitter, we're obviously trying to do the TikTok thing. It's one that's probably found the hardest, I would say, so far. But our digital mailing list is probably the thing that we place the biggest focus on, because it has the power to do direct communications with our audience. And then there's the audience that we build across our ticket platforms, and this is very apt for the festival side of things. We have used Eventbrite, which was previously TicketScript for a long time, in terms of building a database from there. The links between the band and our events, and particularly when we'd open live, give us the power then to attract even more audience towards the band via these platforms and collect a lot of really valuable data. And that's, I think, the first sort of thing. I've got 4 sort of key sections that I put down for this, and the first one is the value of data, and I think that is something that everyone needs to appreciate more than ever. The pandemic's only heightened the importance of being able to reach your audience digitally, because we can't do it physically. So it's really up the stakes in terms of people understanding these platforms, but also understanding how you can best maximise them for your music and for your brand. I think that the value of data in terms of you being able to get your music to the people that you want to get it to, and also find new audience and new people at a time when you can't play at festivals on the other side of the world, or you can't play at new shows to new audiences. So it's something that we've really pushed ourselves this year, because we have been a band that's very reliant on a live performance driving everything. Maybe we put too much of a focus on that, but our live show pretty much was always the thing that carried it, so we've had to adapt quite a lot around that as well. The second thing is content and the power of content. Again, this is something we've had to learn about as we go. In the early days of Facebook, it was just merely about posts and getting likes, but now you have Facebook Live, you now have the capability of putting music videos into Facebook, short videos, capturing things and moments and putting them up. So I think we're always trying to learn about the content that is really successful. And for us, what we find sometimes, it's the most personable image that's taken on a mobile phone or a Facebook Live from backstage behind the show will have huge level of engagement with our audience. That gets far more interaction or actions compared to something that we've maybe spent a lot of money on, i.e. a music video or professional photography things. But I think it's also very important that you have a range of content. Some content will work for particular campaigns or particular ideas, but won't work for other ones as well. So you need to learn. The third thing I had in this is analysing what it is you're doing. It's really important you understand what happens from the content that you're posting on these platforms, and understanding which ones work best for platforms. Twitter's probably a good example of that. It's probably, again, one that's quite difficult to understand from a band perspective, but what we find is Q&As or questions, things that are far more conversational, will have a bigger impact on Twitter, but they wouldn't on the likes of Instagram, where it's very much more about an image or almost something that looks arty in a sense. It's very important to understand that content that you create, all of a sudden, is not going to work across all the platforms, and reach all the audience you need to do. So it's something I think is really important. And I think as a note we took down was people, and certainly we were as well in the early days, obsessed with how many likes you would get on posts, and that deemed whether it was a successful post or not. We're far less worried about likes and a lot more focused on the actions of particular posts and what they are doing. Are people going from that post and going to our website to purchase a ticket? Are they going from that post to music platforms to listen to their music? I think understanding these things and what gets particular reactions, you all of a sudden you can get far more value if you're investing in digital marketing campaigns. I think in the early days where we were quite worried about spending money on ads, and it seemed to be Facebook at the start, you didn't really need to spend money at all, and all of a sudden the ads thing took over, and it was frustrating if you're making posts that were getting zero reach. And I'm sure I speak to loads of artists about this as well, that they plan to do something, they do a post that's not boosted or not paid in any way, and it reaches less than 2% of their audience. That's something that's usually frustrating. But again, you need to go back to the content, you need to think about what it is you want a particular post to do, how you want it to reach, and what action it is that you want to happen on that. And I think if you focus in on that and you invest the right budget behind it, the returns you can get can be very, very successful on that as well. But it's constantly about learning all the time on this. And I think the other platforms I want to speak about, because it's the ones that we're trying to best understand at the moment how we can maximise value and data on it, is the streaming platforms. Is obviously something that's quite a hot topic at the moment as it's getting challenged, and I think the whole remuneration around streaming is a whole different argument that I could go into all day. I don't want to focus on that. I think I want to focus on how can you use these platforms as badly paid as what they are. How can you use them in terms of data? And the reason we're focused on this now, we've been very lucky to be playlisted on Radio 2 for 6 weeks at the start of the year. You think getting something like that would be almost a life-changing moment in terms of your following on social media, sales and things like that. And it didn't happen. There's no doubt everything lit up to an extent, but our social media following only grew a small percent. Everything went to the streaming platforms, the music streaming platforms. So Apple Music went up 800%, Spotify went up 600%, Shazam's, which we had very little and is owned by Apple, in the end it was in the tens of thousands, and the next track behind that was 1,100. So it's understanding how we can take advantage of this, and this is the part that we're struggling to go in. All these people have obviously found our music and its potential new audience, but how can we contact them again? How can we connect with them again? And this is the really tricky part around the music streaming platforms as well. So we are trying to learn at the moment more about these platforms and how we can best use them. We're obviously all hoping that the remuneration thing gets addressed and gets changed at the moment, but we still have to understand how we can learn more about Apple Music, Spotify, and how we best can capture our audience and communicate with our audience via these platforms. Okay, what we'll do is talk through a couple of campaigns that we've run, both with Skerryvore and Tiree Music Festival, to let you understand what we did, why we did it, what we found was successful, etc. from it. And I'll maybe start on Everyday Heroes with Skerryvore, which was pretty recent, maybe about 6 weeks into the first lockdown, so April last year. We'd come off a cancelled tour of the US, and my brother had written this idea for a tune and a song. We thought, look, we'll try and record it remotely and release it, and it all came together very, very quickly. I think musicians will know there's times when you work on a new piece of music and it goes on for months and knowing you still don't seem to get to the end, but this, surprisingly, even for us, came together in the space of about a week. It was then a case of going, how can we make this track engaging? At the end of the day, it was a charity track, and it was about raising awareness and funds for the frontline workers. But we also had a big aim for it to be something that we could get as many people engaged with around the world as possible. So I think if we were doing this in a non-COVID sense, we would have went, we'll try and get a mass band together, because we had guest musicians on it. We had even Alistair Campbell, the old spin doctor who we knew from our Tiree connection that played bagpipes. He got involved in it and stuff as well. We managed to get everyone to just film this on their phones, and we did it with the artists first and launched the track. It took a lot of momentum, but then it was going, how can we keep this going over a period of time? How can we keep this campaign going? And I think that's always the hardest thing, that if with the content, a lot of people run out of ideas or content to keep things going, and particularly if you're only working on the digital platform. So we had the idea of going, join the band. So we had all these guest musicians on already, but we said, like, how can we engage the public? And there was the 8 PM clap for carers. So we said, what about we do 10 past or 8:15, get everyone to play this track. We basically got the music written out, scores written out for it, audio, and we put it all on the website and basically said, you're invited to join. We're going to play it, and we coordinated that globally in terms of time zones and things as well. Craig was going through the videos that get sent in, because he agreed to edit another video together with all the people that joined in that filmed themselves, you know, playing outside their house, and it was just unbelievable, literally tens of thousands of things, and it ended up being our first ever official #1 track that we achieved in the chart. But the aim of it was engagement. That was always the focus, and obviously to raise as much awareness around the frontline workers and the stuff that we're doing. I think we managed to get it to a place that you're always aiming for, as it starts promoting itself. People Facebook Live themselves on their channels, their friends were seeing it, and that was getting shared, and their friends were seeing it, and so on and so on. And it's the thing, you know, we're always, you would love it if it happened all the time, but it's about timing, it's about acting fast, thinking about engagement, trying to get that right, doing the right level of messaging across the platforms and getting that to work. But it was a great example of something where we wouldn't have reached as many people. If we did this in a physical sense, we wouldn't have been able to reach the audience that we did in the end, and it was through the power of these platforms. Our social media numbers, website numbers, was just off the chart in comparison to the Radio 2 thing I was talking about. It even blew that out of the water as well. So it was all just to do with the level of engagement and the viability of that particular campaign. So it was a good example of something like that, a musical one that you can then reach numbers that are way beyond your actual own audience, because that's what it was. It was way beyond, you know, our own audience numbers across all the platforms.